All right. Message to Ammi Sharbel. Okay. I really want to interview Ammi Sharbel, but I'm realizing there's a technical issue, right? Which is that it's unlawful for me to speak to him or email him or contact him, right? Because of the AVO. And obviously he's one of those disgusting, manipulative, petty scumbags that would agree to see me. And then if he sees me, he'll call the police because, I broke one of the conditions of the AVO. I don't trust my uncle. He is, a violent, a deranged person, in my opinion, right? And deranged specifically because he thought it was a good idea to be the guardian of Ned, for example. And Ned was the elderly man that lived at Bajidi's house. He was taking Ned's pension before he died. And he abused Ned. And everyone knew this about Ammi Sharbel. He would make fun, poke, and provoke Ned. So the fact that he would be his guardian at the same time, again, is deranged, right? And then with Ammi Torne, he becomes his guardian, so he has control. He can make important decisions over his finances and his health. And he's bashing him, cracking his skull with a pestle and mortar. Pestle, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter. And breaking his finger at the factory, And I understand Lebo brothers bash each other and all that sort of stuff, right? But when there's mental health disorders, when there's vulnerability at play, it actually becomes something different. It's not just like a simple sibling rivalry. It's someone with a temper problem that is using someone vulnerable as a rag doll. And for Ammi Sharbel to think it's appropriate for him to be the guardian is disgusting, right? And there are stories about him taking Ammi Torne to, Our Lady of Lebanon and Saint Charbel's, and Ammi Torne would cry out to the priests that he didn't like Ammi Sharbel and Ammi Sharbel was fucking him. And the priest, was just like, oh, shut up. Trust Charlie. Charlie's a good person. But the priests are idiots and they don't really know anything about the specifics, right? And I shouldn't say that the priests are idiots. Perhaps they're smart. I don't know. They're just not curious, they're Bible geeks. So they're not going to investigate, the kind of person that Ammi Sharbel is. They're just going to assume he's a good person. And he may be a good person. He just abuses. He's abusive and violent as well. So I am curious as to why he thought it was a good idea for him to be guardian of Ammi Torne and Ned. Did he not see his own faults? Right? Did he not see his own inability to control his emotion? And on that end, was that the reason that he broke up with his wife? Was it because he had an emotional outburst, or was it because he had continual emotional outbursts and his wife couldn't sort of take that anymore? I get the sense that Ammi Sharbel came across as a particular way to this woman, but then after he was married, perhaps because she's contractually obliged to like him, the real sort of side of Ammi Sharbel came out, which is more cynical, which is depraved, which is bestial, violent, and mean. And obviously, she wouldn't accept that. And apparently she's a lawyer, right? So I'd love to know the specifics of his divorce and why he got divorced and all that sort of stuff. I understand that one of the reasons is that Ammi Zuzu and my dad would call and speak to his wife and talk shit about him. They were literally trying to come between a man and his wife, which men in the Lebanese community do not like. So perhaps that caused an issue for him. So I'd like to know why he's divorced. I'd like to know why he thought it was a good idea to be Ammi Torne's guardian and Ned's guardian, and what he did as a guardian for them to sort of help them. What are the specifics? Because, for example, it's concerning, I should say, that the guardian for Ammi Torne, so he gets called when he's in emergency. He's his emergency contact as well, but he's also the one breaking his finger and sending him to hospital. Right? Is that an appropriate sort of thing for a guardian to do to his young brother who suffered? Well, no, to his elder brother, because Amitone came out of his mother first. Amitone and Ami Sharbel are twins, and Amitone is actually older than Ami Sharbel. So, yeah, that makes it even worse that he's abusing his older brother. What was the intention of the AVO? I'd really like to know why he got the AVO, what he thought it was going to do, why he thought that was an effective way to resolve my mania, and is that what he normally does when people sort of attack him and go at him? Does he just look at things that he can sort of attack them with as a defense against his criticism? As a defense against people criticizing him? Is he that scared of being criticized? Also, why did he change his name from Charlie Toke to Charbel to Charles Charbel? And I'd want to add that that it is believed that he did it after he was sent to hospital, after he got a broken hand or arm. People came to his shop in Bexley, his upholstery shop in Bexley, and beat the ever-living shit out of him. And soon after, he changed his name. I believe he was doing an upholstery job at, I'm going to say Porky's at King's Cross. And he pissed someone off there. So did he piss someone off? What happened? I remember he was going out with an Asian woman at that time. Did he bash her as well? And if so, why? Has he always physically assaulted his partners? Has he physically assaulted how many partners has he physically assaulted? And was it warranted? And if so, why was it warranted? You know, things like that. Gosh, and here's what everyone wants to know about Ami Sharbel. It was his ex-girlfriend before he got married, the really young 20-year-old, early 20s or late teens. The story goes that you shamed her, you took her virginity, and you threatened her father, and you also assaulted her, abused her, and let's just say, at the very least, you would have verbally abused her, because that's just, you know, what you do, I'd say. So could you elaborate on that relationship as well? Also, your house in 36 Villiers Street, or rather, your house in Villiers Street, I shouldn't say the address. Where did you get the deposit for the house at Villiers Street? Also, did you ever have any intention of repaying your family the $200,000 that you got after the death of Amti Saud? Also, you told Ammi Zuzu, my dad, and Ammi Maroon that the house that you purchased on Villiers Street was for Happy Lion, and you ended up taking that for yourself. So was that supposed to be an asset for Happy Lion? And if so, can you give it back to help them with the financial issues that they've had? You gave Hamtigada $20 or $30,000 American dollars several years ago to help with the shop. What do you know what they used it for? Because the shop's closed and they're back in Sydney, but there are successful grocery stores in Shardi, so that obviously didn't help. And do you know why that didn't help? Is there something that you wanted to say to your wife, to your ex-wife? Do you want to get her back? You know, I'd imagine that you sort of crumbled and fell apart when you divorced her, and you would have cried. And because people in our family don't know how to deal with sadness, right, and despair, I suppose, that converts to anger. You would have lashed out violently. And I know that you were lashing out violently at your brother, but if you think of the actual emotions that were sort of, I don't know, taking a hold of you, Do you think that it was maybe more complicated than you being angry at your poor brother who's got paranoid schizophrenia? Was it anger at yourself for not being able to, keep someone? Were you angry at yourself that you weren't able to keep your wife? Did you finally identify the fact that, there's something really, really, really wrong with you? For the way that, you treated your brother, and the fact that you were divorced around that time, and a lot of things around you were crumbling and falling apart. Even the apartment that you were living in Little Bay, you had to vacate shortly after you bashed your brother. Remember, people heard screams and cries of agony from blocks away of that apartment. So I'd imagine that you would have got some sort of notice from body corporate to be like, look, guy, you can't be, bashing the ever-living shit out of your brother and shout and scream and wail the way that you do, because that's quite traumatic for people around you, just passerbyers, for goodness sakes. After that happened, did it dawn on you that there might be something wrong with you specifically? Think about it. You got divorced, you bashed your brother, you got an AVO, you got kicked out of your apartment complex, you were removed as director of Happy Lion, and shortly after, your brother Majid, with the assistance of your brother Majid and Maroon, with the assistance of your nephew Andrew, who all had a deep animus towards you, basically ruined all of your hard work with Happy Lion. They basically put put the family in a position where they're going to lose your grandfather's assets, your father's assets. And that was largely due to your inability to be a leader for the family's director of Happy Lion. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about me, Zuzu, feeling the way about you and him holding this deep animus and this deep grudge towards you for not assisting him after his father died and he was about to get a divorce? Do you sort of understand your role in people's misery, or do you still think that you're an island unto yourself? Maybe, I don't know. This is the kind of questions that I want to ask you when I interview you, but I realize that it's just as effective for me to send you the questions and hope that I'll get a response, because we can't send messages to each other directly. So I'm going to send this to Rita. I prefer that because then your lawyer, because you have to pay for your lawyer, I suppose. I don't even know what that arrangement is. I email your lawyer, he doesn't really email me back. I don't know if you're getting the messages, and you're a tight ass yourself, so I'd imagine you don't want to pay your solicitor to send you messages if you do have to, pay to see those emails. I think it's far more effective to get Rita to help with our mediation. And I think it'd be really, really worthwhile for you to hear the questions that I want to put to you, and perhaps you can naturally just start thinking about a response, and maybe one day, you could send me that response. I think I'd really, really like to hear that. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope you're okay. You are such a bad toxic influence to the people around you. I'd imagine that a lot of the reason that Halim is such a bad, mean sort of person is because of his connection with you, unfortunately. You are a deeply jaded, bitter and broken sort of person, in my estimation. Like a big chunk of your wealth is stolen from your family. You are a wretch of the highest order. You are very much like, my father, except you didn't curse, children into this world. So you're, slightly better. Your ex-wife had the good sense to divorce you before you were able to impregnate her with your disgusting demonic seed of a child. You're a horrid sort of monster. You're a bad person, and you should be ashamed. And your mother and father are absolutely ashamed of you and your behavior. Yeah, man. But they love you. I love you. Merry Christmas. All right? I love you. Bye.
Nice. You know, we thought about writing a book about you.
Yeah.
A book.
Is it?
Yeah, and we'll give you the money. If we ever do write a book, we'll give you the money.